Lorcana is the brand new trading card game from Disney and Ravensburger. The game is simple enough for families to pick up and learn and play together, but also has enough depth to engage the veteran gamer. If you're familiar with other trading card games like Knights of the Gathering or Pokemon, you should have no problem picking up this game and its mechanics. This is how to play Lorcana in under 8 minutes. Let's jump in. Lorcana is a strategy card game where you and your families and friends will play as Illumineers, imaginative artists and storytellers in charge of adding to and preserving the wondrous stories of Lorcana. You'll be using magical ink to summon glimmers of famous and reimagined Disney characters, items, stories, and songs in a race to collect the missing lore of Lorcana. Lorcana is often played 1v1 between 2 players, but it can also be played multiplayer with as many players as you wish, with no changes to the rules. Like other trading card games, players come to the table with a deck ready to play. Now, this can be one of the pre-made decks that they sell, or a deck of your own creation using the cards in your collection. Now, building a deck in Lorcana only requires following 3 simple rules. 1. Your deck must have a minimum of 60 cards. 2. Your deck can only contain up to 4 copies of each individual card. This only applies to each specific card, not each character. So you can have up to 4 copies of Aladdin Street Rat and 4 copies of Aladdin Heroic Outlaw in your deck if you so wish. 3. Your deck can only use cards from up to 2 of the 6 magical ink colors: Amber, Amethyst, Emerald, Ruby, Sapphire, and Steel. Each color has their own flavor and strategy, and combining them in different combinations can create all sorts of cool decks. So all the players have come to the table with their decks ready to play. So how do you do that? Well, in Lorcana, the winner of the game is the first to reach 20 lore, and you can track this using tokens, dice, or the track provided by Lorcana products. Determine the first player, maybe with the roll of a dice, and get started. To start, each player draws a hand of 7 cards from the top of their deck. Then everyone gets a chance to get 1 mulligan. To mulligan, choose as many cards from your hand as you want and set them aside, then draw that many cards from the top of your deck to refill your hand back up to 7. Then take the cards you set aside, shuffle them back into the deck. Once everyone has had a chance to mulligan, or chosen just to keep their starting hand, the game begins. At the beginning of each player's turn, they follow a simple sequence of events. Ready, set, draw. To ready, go ahead and ready all those exerted cards on your board. Exerted cards are the ones that are turned sideways, and to ready them, you just turn them right back up. Then trigger any at the beginning of your turn clauses on your cards. Finally, just draw the top card of your deck. If you're playing a 2-player game, the first player does not draw a card at the beginning of their very first turn. After that, the player is free to do as many things as they want and can afford before the end of their turn. After they've done all that they want to do, they go ahead and pass the turn to the next player. First up, they can play a card from their hand into their inkwell, which is the source of magical ink they use to create glimmers. This is the only thing a player can do only once each turn. To add a card to their inkwell, they choose a card in their hand that is inkable, which means it has the swirling pattern around its cost, which is the hexagon in the top left corner. Most cards are inkable, like this one, but some are not, like this one. After they choose an inkable card in their hand, they go ahead and reveal it to their opponent to reveal that it is in fact inkable, and then they go ahead and put it face down in front of them into their inkwell, which is just a space on the board in front of them. Another thing that a player can do on their turn is to play a card. To play a card, a player exerts a number of ink in their inkwell equal to that card's cost. If they don't have enough ink in their inkwell, they can't play that card just yet. There are 3 types of cards in the game: characters, items, and actions. Characters and items are permanent and they stay on the board unless they are banished. Action cards, though, when they are played, they take effect and then they're placed into the discard pile. Before we take a look at the other things you can do on your turn, let's go ahead and break down these cards. Character cards represent Disney characters that we all know and love, or in some cases reimagined in a flavorful new way. Character cards have a cost, a name, a list of classifications, a strength value, a willpower value, a number of lore pips, and of course, text. We've already covered cost, and you know what their name is. A character's classification only comes into play with some specific cards. For example, some cards may reference princesses, so all your characters that have the princess classification. A character's strength determines how much damage they deal in a challenge. Their willpower represents how much damage they can take before they are banished, which just means they go into the discard pile. The number of lore pips they have shows how much lore they find when questing, and of course, text provides all sorts of abilities and effects, but this is very self-explanatory. Unless otherwise stated, characters cannot be exerted on the same turn they are played, because their ink hasn't dried yet. I'll get more into why we want to be exerting characters in a moment. Item cards show all sorts of fun items and objects from the Disney films. They also have a cost, a name, and text. Items provide all sorts of bonuses and powers and stay permanently on the board until banished. Many items need to be exerted to activate their power, and that is represented by this symbol. Unlike characters, items can actually be exerted the turn that they are played, because their ink dries up real fast. Action cards are very simple. They just have their name, their cost, and their effect. Once played, they go immediately into the discard pile. Some action cards are special, however. These are called songs. Songs work just like normal action cards, except there is a special way to play them without paying their ink cost. You can exert a character to sing a song for free, as long as that character's cost equals or exceeds the song cost. So for example, if you have a character that costs 3 lore, you can exert it to sing a song that costs 3 or less for free. Remember how I said that a player needs 20 lore to win? Well, how do you get lore? This is called questing, and it's really simple. To quest with a character, all you need to do is exert that character and gain a number of lore equal to the number of lore pips they have. Another thing you can do on your turn with characters is challenging. To challenge, exert one of your characters to challenge an exerted character an opponent controls. Both characters deal damage to each other simultaneously, an amount equal to their strength. Go ahead and mark that damage on them with tokens, a dice, or something similar. If a character has taken an amount of damage in total that equals or exceeds their willpower, they are banished, which means they're placed into the discard pile. Remember that unless otherwise stated, a character cannot exert the turn it is played, meaning it can't quest or challenge. After doing as many things as a player wants in their turn, they go ahead and then pass the turn to the player on their left, who then begins their turn. And you just keep going like this until a player wins. And that's it. That's how to play. Let's quickly take a look at an example turn in the middle of a 1v1 game to see how all of these things work in tandem. We're dropping into this game on player 1's 4th turn, so they already have some cards out and a plan in motion. To start their turn, they ready all the exerted ink cards in their inkwell and all their exerted characters and items. Then, draw the top card of their deck. First thing they want to do is ink a card, so they reveal Stitch, New Dog, an inkable card, and place it face down into their inkwell as ink. Next, they exert 3 of the ink in their inkwell to play Maleficent Sorceress. She says that when she is played, you draw a card, so player 1 draws a card. Because Maleficent's ink hasn't dried yet, they can't do anything else with her for this turn. Then player 1 is going to exert Minnie Mouse, beloved princess, to quest. Because she only has 1 lore pip, they gain 1 lore. Player 1 already had 1 lore from earlier, so this brings them up to 2 lore total. Next, they exert the wardrobe, not to quest, but to challenge. Player 2 exerted LeFou last turn to quest, which means LeFou is wide open. Both characters deal damage to each other at the same time, so the wardrobe gets 2 damage marked on her, and LeFou gets 3 damage marked on him. Because his willpower is only 2, that is enough to banish him, so he is placed in the discard pile. Then, player 1 exerts their Dingle Hopper item card, which has an ability when exerted to heal 1 damage, so they remove a damage off of the wardrobe. Player 1 has done all they can do for the turn, so they end their turn, and it's time for player 2's turn. And that's it. That's how you play Lorcana. If you have any specific questions about the rules or anything else, make sure to ask them in the comments down below, and I'll get back to you as soon as I can. Also, don't forget to like and subscribe, especially if you want to be alerted of any new Lorcana videos coming down the line. Good luck, Illumineers, and happy questing.